She's Zoe brings bacon.
When has Zoe actually brought bacon to you, Patrick?
Well, it doesn't matter if she brings it to me or not. Maybe she brings bacon to her friends or to random people in the street.
So you're worried that Poodle Puncher punches poodles sometimes. That's what all this is about.
In the spirit of Facebook's conundrums in moderating their platform, that he encourages poodle punching by virtue of his screen name. He advocates for violence against animals.
I don't think a username is intent, although an emoji apparently expresses intent according to an Israeli court. So what are you going to do?
But, I mean, I can understand what Patrick's saying. It could also be in poor taste. It's a poor taste.
Do you think it is? Are you cracking down right now on one of our best listeners?
I'm just asking questions, Tom. I'm sorry you don't like the questions. Don't shoot the questioner.
I'm just trying to stick up from a poodle puncher. That's all. I don't think you have to be so literal about it.
Maybe he wanted something else and it was taken. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he wanted to.
Maybe he means that he brings punch to poodles, and they enjoy it because it's a delicious beverage.
Well, that's poorly worded then. Maybe he wanted kitten hugger and it was taken, and then that's true.
Well, isn't a cow puncher cowboy, like slang? So maybe poodle puncher.
Maybe he just brands his poodles so he can keep them straight and know which ones are his.
Makes sense. All of these are fine arguments.
Well,
I'm really worried about that.
I mean, Gru. I'm not afraid of being eaten by Gru.
Yeah, but the Gru is a fictitious creature that was thought up by the programmers.
So is a poodle puncher.
What's a Gru? Because a Gru is a bird.
Not much. French. What's Gru with you?
It's from Zork. When you go into the wrong place, you get eaten by a Gru.
Zork, the text adventure game, the programmers put in a thing so people wouldn't just wander aimlessly around and eventually uncover all the secrets by trial and error. So they created the Gru, which was something that would automatically kill you if you didn't have light or weren't in a well-lit part of the cave.
And French players were often less scared because they're like, it's just a bird.
You don't know what it is. They never really... I mean, they sort of described it in Beyond Zork, but not really. They describe a baby.
You have
Gru.
been eaten by a pigeon.
I know my remains might be eaten by a pigeon. Crazy birds.
By a specific pigeon, or
perhaps it's the pigeon. It's the one pigeon you don't see that gets you.
It's always the pigeon you don't see.
It's been stalking you for years and telling you.
You know what they say. It's always the pigeon you don't see. All right.
I'll get you one day, Chang. Oh my God, it's 11:29.
I know.
All right, hiding.
Here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. No, I'm actually talking about you. If you want to find out more about that, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt, talking in all periods today with Patrick Beja. How are you?
I'm good. It feels like some kind of coach telling me to do push-ups or something.
Beja, we're going to get out there. We're going to talk about startups in Europe. We're going to compare them to the startup scene in Silicon Valley, and you're going to do great. Now get out there and make me proud.
I'll try, sir.
I'm going to do that before every show now. This really gets us all pumped up. No, we are going to talk about the startup scene in Europe. There's an interesting World Economic Forum piece about it that we'll be talking about. And of course, Patrick being in Europe, we're not putting him up as the expert of all things European startup, but you're on the ground. You can give us some local impressions there.
I think that makes me an expert. Living in Europe, in the general region of the world, makes me able to speak knowingly about those.
So send in your questions about anything that exists in France or Finland, and Patrick will answer all of them. Let's start with a few tech things you should know. Nokia and Apple have signed patent peace. A patent license agreement will end their legal disputes, not Qualcomm. Apple still got big problems with Qualcomm. And so, in fact, some people think that's why they made the peace with Nokia. As part of the deal, Nokia will get cash payments and provide network products and service to Apple, and Apple will carry Nokia's digital health products in its stores.
Users can now search Instagram stories by location or hashtag and even see a story composed of posts that match the search term. Location stories from nearby places will also now show up in the Explore tab.
And Snapchat was like, we've got machine learning. We've got vision. You can't match us yet, Instagram. Symantec said Monday it believes it is highly likely that a hacking group referred to as Lazarus is responsible for the WannaCry ransomware. The same internet connection was used to install early versions of WannaCry that was also used in the attack on Sony Pictures Entertainment in 2014, which is believed to have been conducted by Lazarus.
Which is linked to North Korea, right?
They believe Lazarus may have some connection to the North Korean government. None of this is all speculation, though. None of this is
there's a lot of maze and seems like.
Yeah, it is the month of May. That's why we're doing this.
Twitter introduced direct message cards, an ad that shows up in people's timelines. If clicked, it starts a conversation by direct message.
So it's a way to get bots into Twitter. All right. I guess.
I don't know if this is annoying or clever. I can't decide.
Annoying or clever? You be the judge. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. All right, here's some more top stories. Microsoft announced the new Surface Pro at an event in Shanghai. They didn't forget to say Surface Pro 5. It's just Surface Pro. That's the name. They have got Kaby Lake chips in most of the models. That's power efficient enough for Microsoft to claim 13.5 hours of battery life. Otherwise, the hardware is pretty similar to the Surface Pro 4, and right down to the fact that it does not have USB-C ports, although there's talk about a dongle coming for that because we love dongles. A version of the Surface Pro with LTE built in is promised to come eventually. It will not be there at launch. The Surface Pen now has 4,096 levels of sensitivity. That's up from 1,024. It includes tilt sensitivity, and a lot of people are saying it has less lag. It must be bought separately for $99. There are also cloth-covered Surface Pro type covers in platinum, burgundy, and cobalt blue. They run for $159, and one in black that is not cloth. That's only $129. Pre-order start today for $800 for the base model, shipping in 26 countries June 15th. And at the same event, Microsoft announced a new version of Windows 10 customized for government use in China. It uses China's own encryption scheme, and a joint venture will manage the system updates for it. Those will not be provided by Microsoft, which is normally what happens with Windows. You get your updates from Microsoft.
So this is just for government use. It's not for regular consumer use in China.
No, it's only being sold to the Chinese government, and nobody else gets to buy it.
Interesting. The Surface Pro is, it was looking interesting when it first came out a few years ago, and it's been improved significantly with every new iteration. And honestly, this one looks really sexy. It looks very good, and it's become very decently powerful. It's a very nice machine now. I think it already was nice, but it's more nicer, I would say.
I've always liked Microsoft's take on the tablet 2-in-1 since the first Surface. Even that Windows RT weird one, the form factor was really good, and they've gotten better over time. My problem with it is never Microsoft's take on it. My problem is that particular 2-in-1 form factor. I just can't work on it. I either just want to use a tablet, in which case I don't need that keyboard cover, or I want a full-on laptop. I've got an iPad Pro. I never use the keyboard on it. I just never do.
I think if you want a very portable machine that is almost a tablet, but which is a full version of Windows, this looks like the best version there is. But
I agree. It's a really nice one. I think it's still early for USB-C. I get what Microsoft's saying. They're like, USB-C isn't ready. Then we don't have anything against USB-C. We just don't think there's enough accessories for it yet. I think it's weird that they're putting that proprietary connector for power on the Surface instead of replacing that with USB-C, because the dongle they're talking about would plug into that weird connector and provide connectivity. You can do power or other things, which that connector can be used for display purposes and docks anyway. So Microsoft is saying the world is ready for a proprietary connector that only we make and no one else makes accessories for, but they're not ready for USB-C. Like, give me both. Why not give me both?
Well, I think there are two things here. First, if you do put a USB-C port in there, it sort of brings expectations and another set of questions, like, why do you put just one and also have some USB-A? It's kind of weird and backwards, and I understand that. And the other part is, I think this is a relatively, as good as it is, and it tilts a little bit more on the hinge, and all of these things are really great, but it's still a relatively minor update of the existing form factor. Yeah. So probably putting USB-C on the device would have meant a little bit more engineering. So
Drew Nielsen asks, what about the Surface Book? Would that solve your problems, Tom? And I would say yes. That's why I have a Surface Book, and I love it. And I never use it as a tablet. Almost ever. So there you go.
Google's AlphaGo defeated the world's #1 Go player, KGA, I hope that's how you pronounce that, in the first of 3 game matches. AlphaGo won by half a point. The remaining matches are scheduled for May 25th and May 28th. AlphaGo will also participate in 2 stipulation matches on May 27, one acting as a teammate for 2 competing human players, and another where AlphaGo takes on 5 Chinese pros at once.
Yeah, the second part took me a little while to wrap my head around. AlphaGo, because it's a computer, can be on both teams playing each other. And that's not a problem. It won't cheat with itself. So that's what the one where there's two human competitors, and each one of them has a version of AlphaGo as their teammate, which is interesting. And then the taking on 5 at once, that's just showing off. What do you think? Laying odds. Will the AI win the next game and then basically take the match, or can K rally and win these last 2?
It almost doesn't matter. If it doesn't win this time, it will within a few months or a year. And all of these were really interesting when they first started getting devices that could win at chess. And then when it first started to win at Go, because that was the bigger, more difficult game to win at. And at some point, there's going to be other types of games. We're starting to talk about computer games, and StarCraft was announced as a platform for DeepMind to start playing with.
Yeah.
The thing is, especially in those games where the computer can see all of the possible iterations, it's going to win. Now we know there isn't like some kind of weird human intuition that allows humans to do the thing better. Yes, maybe in some instances there is going to be a human that sees a path or gets, and I see you pining to contradict me.
As I understand it, AlphaGo does not play Go by imagining all possible scenarios, that there are too many of them. That is the key advance here, is that with chess, the computer just knows all the scenarios and then can play chess. Go is so complex that it actually just has to learn strategies. That's why you need more sophisticated machine learning for it to work.
Potato. Right, I say with an English accent. What I mean is, the computer is going to imagine everything that it can, and that's more than we can. And the scenarios it's imagining go by machine learning and looking at many different potential ways it plays out.
Well, it learns by playing, and it can play way more games than any of us can.
Machine learning. So I think the bigger question is, we shouldn't be surprised, or it shouldn't even be, maybe I'm a little bit ahead of the curve here, and it is important that these steps be taken stock of, but we shouldn't even be surprised that they're going to win at these. They are going to, and that's not, to me, it's not really news anymore.
I don't know, man. I think maybe your soul is a little dead inside. Like, come on, it's easy to say, well, we knew machine learning would get to this point, but there's a difference for me with but it did, right? It's now, there is not
But
a
it did
human on
before.
earth that can stand against this and go, which means it's not just mapping out, it's not a mechanical thing. Like, it had to learn, it had to do some reasoning, it had to learn from experience, and that's applicable across a lot of different problems. So it's a milestone. I think it's impressive.
Yeah, well, it obviously is, but I think it's been impressive for a while, and there are other very impressive things that are happening with, deep learning and machine learning. This is almost, it's not like 2 years ago news, but it kind of is. It's yesterday's news at a very.
You're saying that when AlphaGo won its first Go matches, that was the impressive part for you, and the fact that it's beating the number one player shouldn't be a surprise because you knew it was not far off for it to.
Right. I mean, if it beat the number 3 player, number 5 player, it's not surprising that it will beat now or in 2
But
months.
it's different than actually doing it, right? If I beat the number 5 player, I couldn't say, I don't need to play the number 1 player. I'm obviously good enough.
I guess what I was trying to say is at some point it's going to win, and that's not surprising.
Yeah. But the proof is in the pudding, and now we have pudding.
With a proof in it.
The Chaos Computer Club were able to unlock a Samsung Galaxy S8 using a picture of the user's iris. An image of a user's iris can be obtained from a high-resolution picture or taken from up to 5 meters away using a 200-millimeter lens in night shot mode or with the infrared filter display. But because the Samsung iris scanner uses infrared, you need an infrared photo. The club printed a picture of a high-quality photo of an iris on a high-quality Samsung laser printer just to rub it in Samsung's face. Like, we're using your own printer against you. And then placed a contact lens on top of the photo to mimic the curvature of the eye, and it works great. No problem.
I think this is yet another proof that all of these security features are not going to be, protecting you from every form of hacking in the world. It's just that it makes it difficult for someone who just happens to get on your phone, to get your phone in their hand, to get into it. That's it.
Yeah.
And
I think it's important to know these limitations. I think it's also not worthless to use iris scanning to lock your phone if you're in certain situations, because again, it's all about reducing the risk. And most of us probably don't have people who would go to the trouble of stalking us, taking a high-resolution picture of us, or finding a high-resolution picture of us with our eye in it, then stealing our phone and printing out that picture and putting a contact lens over it so that they can unlock our phone. That's a lot of trouble to go to for most of us. But if you're in a situation where your phone contains incredibly valuable information that somebody would go to the trouble to do that with, then you should know about this for sure.
Of course. For most people, do the iris thing. It's easy. And if you add, I don't know if it's possible on those phones. I'm guessing it is, but to have the iris thing and the fingerprint thing, at that point, it's kind of like, well, yeah, someone could get both, but if you have both together.
The Apple Touch ID can be fooled as well. But again, you have to go to a lot of trouble to do it. So it's a matter of knowing how secure the security system you're using is. For instance, compare it to, hey, I've used a numerical code to lock my phone, which someone just needs to either guess or find out from me and trick me into revealing by looking over my shoulder. Like, also not secure. But a lot of us use it because it's like, we're pretty careful, and how much trouble is somebody going to go to get our phone unlock code? It's all about putting things in place.
And you're right. It's important for people to know that this can be hacked. So, Supercell updated their hit mobile game Clash of Clans in a comprehensive manner that many connoisseurs, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it in the American way or French way.
It's pronounced connoisseur.
Connoisseur. Okay, that many connoisseurs describe as pretty much Clash of Clans 2. The update brings a whole new map and new base, as well as new mechanics that refresh gameplay for old fans and invites new players in as well.
Now, this is interesting because I like this tactic of saying, we're not going to make you download a new app because we know a bunch of you wouldn't, because you're so invested in this game. So we're going to bring out a new game and just put it in the game.
So this is, yeah, you're right. This is exactly the key part of this, because we're getting to a place where mobile games are in that same difficult situation as some of the big PC or console games have been in the past, namely games like MMORPGs, where you accumulate a huge community. And since they're living, breathing worlds, at some point you have to wonder, do I put out a new version? Or do I put out kind of an expansion and keep my base? And the way that Supercell has gone for Clash of Clans, well, not Clash of Clans 2, but that latest update is really clever. It's adopting that model of, this is basically an expansion. It kind of wipes away a big part of the previous version of the game. I'm sure it's still available if people want to play that. But it also offers, it's a reset. It also offers an entirely new experience for people who want that and who might be calling for it because the old one has been around for years and might be getting a little bit stale.
And they make their money off in-app payments, right? So as long as they keep people using the app or get people to start using it again, they have a better chance of making the money.
Yeah, going with Clash of Clans 2 would have been a very risky proposition if it was an entirely new app.
It's like an online MMORPG, right? You just add things to it, and
exactly.
And hopefully keep people paying their monthly subscription. In this case, it's not a monthly subscription; it's in-app payments. But finally, Pinterest has added the ability to identify meals by taking a picture of it. It's part of its Lens feature. Lens in Pinterest will analyze the photo of the meal and then suggest matching recipes so you can make it yourself. You can also fine-tune recipe searches by time, vegetarian or vegan content, or other specific ingredients if you're just looking around on Pinterest for recipes. Pinterest not calling the new feature seafood, although it is almost exactly the functionality described in the app Seafood on the show Silicon Valley. So it's kind of funny. I love this because I use Pinterest to manage recipes. It's how we plan our meals. And being able to be out and now take a picture and put it in Pinterest and have a recipe show up is incredibly convenient.
It's almost like they know what people use their service for and cater their next updates to that.
Well, plus, I mean, this is technology that is hard to do right. I haven't tried it, so I don't know how right they've got it. But yeah, taking a picture of an apple and having it tell you it's an apple, that's almost expected behavior these days. But being able to take a picture of a whole plate of food and have it go, oh, okay, that's, steak tartare, and here's a good recipe that will make steak tartare, that's pretty cool.
We should have expected it. It's not like they've done it already.
When they started to identify apples, I knew it wouldn't be long before that. Yeah.
It's I used a few times an app called Foodvisor that does the same thing, basically, or recognizes at least what the dish is. And Drew Nielsen in the chat room is asking if that uses the Google Lens API, which I don't think it does, right? It's called Lens.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Well, there you go. So yeah, it's a pretty cool functionality. I don't use Pinterest myself, but I'm pretty sure if I did, I would be jazzed.
Maybe that's why I'm jazzed, because I do use it, and I use it for recipes. And this is exactly, like you say, this is the kind of thing that I didn't know I wanted. If they'd done a survey, I wouldn't have said, yeah, let me take pictures of food and then I will add it. But yeah, the fact that I can do it now, I'm definitely going to give this a try and try it out.
I'm sure they're going to expand it to other things. I mean, it makes really good sense with finding recipes, but probably they're going to be able to do other things with pictures that they will recognize the contents of. That's, the way the world is going.
It does not seem to be the same Lens. It is a brand confusion. Pinterest Lens is available on iOS and Android for pinners who have their mobile devices set to English. And it existed before the recent identification of Lens or introduction of Lens by Google. So there you go. Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. All right, interesting World Economic Forum article out called Step Aside Silicon Valley. There's a new tech hub in town. And then there's an opinion piece kind of using that as its launch point from the Next Web, written by Matthew Hughes, who is based in Europe for the Next Web. Bunch of interesting facts here. London VC firm Atomico put out a study saying last year a record-setting $13.6 billion was invested in Europe's tech sector. That's up from $2.8 billion 6 years ago in 2011, or I guess 5 years ago in 2011. Deep tech, machine learning, AI, that kind of stuff, accounted for $1.3 billion of the European venture. That's on the rise. There are 4.7 million pro developers in Europe, according to Stack Overflow, compared to 4.1 million in the US, more professional developers in Europe than in the United States. Paris, Munich, Zurich, Copenhagen, all cities with growing startup communities in tech. Paris is approaching London and Berlin in the number and volume of VC finance deals. 2/3 of the Europe's largest corporations by market cap have made a direct investment in tech, so traditional industries are starting to move into it. The Benelux region, the Nordics, and the Baltic countries generate as much as 8% of GDP from IT. And the American companies, Google, Facebook, Amazon, all have announced major expansions of their European tech hubs. 5 of the top 10 global computer science facilities are within the European Union. The World Economic Forum article does note that the U.S. firms still enjoy 14 times more later stage capital. There's parity at the early stage, but later stage U.S. still has the advantage. And of course, the EU has 28 different consumer markets with different regulatory regimes. So when you go into US or you go into China, once you're in, it's the same regulatory regime for the most part across the market. That is not the case in Europe. So I think this turns on its head a lot of what US people think of Europe. They think of Europe as over-regulated and tough to succeed in. Now, the regulation part certainly has some basis in fact, but it doesn't seem like it's tough to succeed in. From your perspective, Patrick, how much of this do you think is true?
I think there's a lot of truth to, okay, the image I think of Americans of the European tech scene is not untrue. It's just 5 years old. When we were talking about investment, I have a good friend called Jeff Clavier at Softtech VC, and we discuss, the VC and tech investment scenes regularly. And when we talked about it a few years ago, he was telling me that it was fairly weak, compared to the US. Now, I wouldn't say maybe it's on parity in early stage, for sure, but he has been telling me that it is growing, and that's obviously a very good sign. We might not be there yet, but it's definitely on the rise, and it's not as ridiculous looking, it's not as dwarfed as it was by the American side of the tech sector a few years ago. So I think the image that Americans have of the EU is not wrong. Again, it's just 5 years old.
Yeah, speaking of 5 years ago, I remember Loïc Lemur talking about Le Web and talking about how they needed to have more events like that in order to get European countries to take the tech sector seriously. And it sounds like that those efforts have worked, that things are starting to turn around there. What attitude towards startups do you see from people in Europe?
It's really interesting because it's almost like we have the same kind of duality that you might have in the US between the Silicon Valley and maybe some other parts of the country,
sure,
except it's all in the same location. Like in France, it's much smaller than the US, of course, and you'll find a vibrant tech scene. And as some of you might know, there are a lot of tech enthusiasts and developers. And, the French tech ecosystem is absolutely strong. And at the same time, I think there's a lot of that old world mentality, which doesn't drag the tech scene down, but sort of lives in parallel and doesn't. The big players might not pay enough attention to what's happening in the tech scene in the same way that people do in the US. However, again, I think that might be an image from a few years ago, because if you look at tech in general, since smartphones have taken over the world, people have started paying attention. And that also happened with companies like, of course, if you're going to talk about Google, Apple, Facebook, all of this is obvious. But if you look at things like Uber and Airbnb and autonomous cars and deep learning, and all of those things have insinuated themselves in society as a whole, all over the world, to a point where the old world and the old businesses have had to start paying attention. And I think that's why you're seeing those statistics where traditional businesses have started investing in tech, because they realize if we don't pay attention to this, it's going to eat us. So basically, the power of tech has reached, in the last few years, a tipping point, I think, which means everyone has to pay attention, including the political world and the old industries, so much that it's become a driving force in society as a whole. So that's why the tendency, the trend is shifting a little bit.
So let's flip this. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So to summarize the attitude towards startups, there is some of this annoyance towards startup, the Silicon Valley show and like the tech hipsters, as you will see everywhere. But I think people understand the importance of all of this as well.
All right, let's go from what Europe thinks of itself to the other direction. How does Europe see Silicon Valley? I mean, we talked about the perception that we in the US have had of Europe, which needs to be adjusted given the new facts on the ground. What do people in Europe think when they think about US Silicon Valley tech scene?
I think most regular people, I mean, if you look at the devs and the technical people, be they in, Paris, London, Helsinki, where I'm currently at, or other places, I think it's going to be the same kind of attitude that we have in the tech circles everywhere. That's not so different. But society as a whole, you're going to have a mix of awe in the good and negative senses, and defiance, because as much as you are aware of the opportunities and dangers of huge giant companies like Google and Facebook, we are aware of them as well, on top of the fact that they are foreign held companies. Mm-hmm. So anytime anyone brings up Facebook or Apple or Google, we're going to talk about a lot of the things that they're doing. First of all, tax evasion is a big topic. We could go into that, but I don't think we should. Right. And then the kind of power that they exert over countries is frightening, because they are in many ways more powerful than most other countries on earth. And when we talk about things like that impact our daily lives, we very quickly go to the conversation you were having yesterday about censorship and which kind of values and cultural system they, quote unquote, impose on the rest of the world. I think tech-savvy people understand that it's a little bit more complicated than that, and you can't please everyone, and it's tough calls. But a lot of the regular people will look at this and think at the same time, Facebook is censoring a picture as soon as you see a nipple, which is very annoying to us French people. And at the same time, we will say, but they leave posts that are clearly hate mongering up for a very long time when we would want them taken down immediately. So that kind of attitude is easier to get to, I think, when the companies are mostly foreign. And when we see a local company that is successful, something like, Dailymotion or Spotify, or, those that are closer to Europe, there's a little bit of pride there that is sometimes a little bit unwarranted, or an excessive pride that I would think, well, it's not like they're, YouTube when you think of Dailymotion, but yeah.
Spotify, though, I think that one's justifiably worth pointing at as being tops in its field, at least at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. But the ones that we have our eye on are the GAFA or GAFAM. Do you use that acronym? I'm not even sure.
Google, Apple, Facebook, Microsoft.
Yes.
Yeah.
Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft. It used to be, interestingly, by the way, it used to be GAFA, which is Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, a couple of years ago. And really, Microsoft has crawled its way back in since Satya Mania started. It was kind of on the way out. So, and now it's definitely back in. So, so these ones are the big ones that impact our lives so much, that have the big issues with tax evasion and, you know, things like, it's easier, I guess, to tell companies or people that's how you should do things, and we don't want to hear it when they are foreign, be they American or, you know, Chinese or anything. And obviously, as you know, we don't have a lot of those giant mega players in Europe that are originally from Europe. So we don't have to deal with that issue of telling a French company, you know, that's how you have to do it because the government says that's how you have to do it, right? It's easier to say that to Facebook.
Well, speaking of Facebook, I want to get to our message of the day. First of all, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Bob Kimball wrote in regarding that discussion yesterday about Facebook liability, saying, I would suggest you look at the past. There are two cases of interest. One involves CompuServe, the other Prodigy. I would say that Facebook falls solidly in the Prodigy camp and is a publisher. The Prodigy case that he's talking about is Cubby Incorporated versus CompuServe and Stratton versus Prodigy Services. Cubby versus CompuServe found CompuServe to be an online service provider, therefore not a publisher. So CompuServe won the case. Stratton claimed that Prodigy could not use that defense because it exercised editorial control over the content created by its users in three ways. It posted content guidelines. That sounds familiar. Enforced the guidelines with board leaders. That's not something Facebook really does, but they do employ people. And removed offensive language with screening software. And that is something that Facebook does. The court held that Prodigy's conscious choice to gain the benefits of editorial control opened it up to greater liability to CompuServe and other computer networks that make no such choice. Now, granted, Bob's right. If you just look at that, boy, it sounds like Facebook is pretty close to Prodigy there. And I wonder if someone took them to court in the US, what that would mean. However, don't forget that the holding in Stratton was overruled by federal legislation when Congress passed Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act in 1996, which still is in effect. That is the famous safe harbor provision. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. So, as long as Facebook isn't posting it, and as long as Facebook continues to meet the definition of an online service provider, they get to claim safe harbor. And this is why you see them not taking down certain types of content, because they want to continue to be seen as someone who is, look, this safe harbor provision doesn't exempt us from criminal stuff. We have the right to go in and remove criminal postings, and so we will do that. And we can make an argument that offending community standards could be on the line, so we'll do that. But we are not going to get into the process of editing people's posts, because if we're seen as doing that, we lose our safe harbor protection.
Yeah, it's and the thing is, if you look at the definition of all of this and want to be super, super careful and make sure that you don't dip your toe into that, you know, starting to edit the content, then the best course of action is to do nothing. And of course, Facebook can't do nothing. So they're
and actually they don't get the safe harbor protection against criminal behavior. If they know of criminal behavior or if they know of copyright violation behavior, those are exemptions that they have to go in and remove. So
of course,
there's a certain amount of action that's required.
Of course, yes. My argument is the public pressure is for them to do a little bit more than just that. And so the point is they are between a rock and a hard place, the rock being the public pressure asking them to do the right thing without defining what the right thing is and saying, oh, it's like the
do
right
my
thing,
idea
right?
of the right thing. Yeah. And that's millions of different ideas right there.
Yeah. And the thing is, people don't think of it as you detailed yesterday. So I'm not going to go over it again. People don't say, do my idea of the right thing, because in their head, it's just the right thing and it's easy to do. And so there's the public pressure there. And then there is the very real legal risk of becoming, a publisher. And if you do that, then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah,
so
losing your protection.
It's not a situation.
Well, thank you, Patrick Beja. As always, Frenchspin.com, the place to go to find Patrick's great works. Anything in particular you want to highlight today?
Well, if you enjoy gaming, maybe you'd like a simple bi-monthly show twice a month that summarizes everything there is to know about video games. And in that case, you can go to FrenchSpin.com and listen to Pixels. And if you enjoy tech and enjoy the French language, then go to FrenchSpin.fr and listen to Le Rendezvous Tech, where we talk about tech in French every 2 weeks as well.
Go check it out. Thanks to everybody who gives a little value back to this show so we can keep Patrick coming back, keep all of our co-hosts coming back. If you get value from the show, all we ask is you give a little value back. Thanks to everyone who supports us in that manner, including Ken Vaughn, Cynthia, Sam Coulter, Chip Burnett, and many, many more at patreon.com/DTNS. If you're supporting us, I'm thanking you. Yes, you, right now. Thank you. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. Come on by and join us at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. We got a Facebook group going at facebook.com/dailytechnewsshow, and our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
All right. What shall we call such a show?
French people don't see nipples.
I'm told there are nipples. I believe people, but I don't see nipples.
Oh, USB wait and see. That's really good, BioCow.
Yeah, by the way, if all of these look like BioCow, that's because BioCow had to reboot Showbot.tv. It looks like he put the attribution in parentheses.
Oh, right. So it's AGC.
AJC. Well,
AJC,
also,
sorry.
Yeah.
And I was thinking.
Here we AlphaGo again.
All of these are good.
Got a bunch of patent peace. Want to spread rumors. Alpha goes for another round.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Roger.
Oh,
right.
Reading through.
Roger.
We've been reading
When
through
Irish
this.
eyes are spying, I see you. Patent peace. The French tech scene is booming. Although it's not just France, it's Europe wide, right? Isn't that, or the EU wide?
True. The story was about all of Europe.
Yes. But, I mean, we all know what Europe is about these days.
That's why I'm learning French, because that's going to be the language of Europe now.
Wasn't it the language of Europe back in the 18th century?
Exactly.
Breaking.
And if it was good enough then.
Considering emigrating to France.
Oh no, I know you don't want immigrants there.
No, we're fine. Don't you know we didn't elect?
Yeah, most of you are fine with it. That's true.
Especially tech people. He's like the joke now is that Macron is running his government like a startup.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like it. Now we have pudding.
And now we have pudding. Here we go. AlphaGo. When Irish eyes are spying on you.
Iris
I don't know.
eyes.
Facebook
When
has a service.
Iris eyes are spying. French people don't see nipples is the popular choice.
All right. They do see nipples. They just aren't.
No, we see
bothered
them.
by
We
it.
don't want people to take them away.
That's true. It kind of is incorrect. French people do see them and don't want to be prevented from seeing.
What about like French people aren't bothered by nipples?
Yeah, but that's not as.
It's not as snappy. I like USB wait and see too.
French nipple people.
Okay, now you're just saying weird words.
I'm
Now
just
you're
rearranging
taking
it.
you're just rearranging the appropriate words.
You don't people nipples French.
I think USB wait and see could be fine. No?
Yeah, I like it. I voted
It's
for
all
it.
right. I'm trying to get something that that kind of sums up the
Biogas
discussion.
is king. Sums up the discussion.
The French tech scene is booming.
Is Europe the new Silicon Valley?
The problem is you can't write the title in that voice.
But there have been so many. That is like one of the most overused. Is this blah 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 the new Silicon?
Yeah.
The answer is no.
And I remember someone writing. I think it was the Mercury Times. It's like, you don't want another Silicon Valley. You want something that works, right? It's that there's
Silicon Valley works.
That was actually one of the
Silicon
headlines.
Valley works for where it is and what it.
One of these headlines. Europe isn't the new Silicon Valley. It's better.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's the next web's headline, so we can't use that. Microsoft Surface is definitely one of our discussed stories, and it's in my description, so we can go with USB wait and see.
USB wait and see.
Okay. That works.
USB wait and see. USB wait and see. TechCrunch's Devin Coldewey has an excellent analysis of the proposal for notice of proposed rulemaking for net neutrality up. And while he's a little snarky in his description, he points out something very good, which is that in the notice, the definitions of an information service and a telecommunications service are quoted from the Telecommunications Act of 1996. And he makes the argument that the definitions very clearly describe the internet as a telecommunications service. And the FCC's argument that it's an information service is a misunderstanding of how the internet works. So I want to read you the two definitions, and you tell me which one sounds like the internet to you, based on how you know the internet works. Are you ready?
Okay.
Definition 1. The offering of a capability for generating, acquiring, storing, transforming, processing, retrieving, utilizing, or making available information via telecommunications, and includes electronic publishing, but does not include any use of any such capability for the management, control, or operation of a telecommunications system. Definition 2. The transmission between or among points specified by the user of information of the user's choosing without change in the form or content of the information as sent and received.
2.
Well, the second one would be the internet if you have net neutrality. Because it could be argued that in the second, the no changing of the information, some things I think could be argued
without changing the form or content of the information. So in other words, you're not taking, like if I ask for a web page, you give me the web page. You don't take the web page and then reinterpret it and bring it to me like I've summarized the web page for you. Is kind of the intent.
So, but what happens if you change the ads on the web page? I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting side point. But
yeah, the second one, yes.
The FCC is making the argument that very clearly it's definition 1. Let me read what they say. Whether posting on social media or drafting a blog, or a broadband internet user is able to generate and make available information online. Whether reading a newspaper's website or browsing the results from a search engine, a broadband internet user is able to acquire and retrieve information online. In short, broadband internet access service appears to offer its users the capability to perform each and every one of the functions listed in the definition of an information service, and accordingly appears to be an information service by that definition.
What? But what's the second part? Can you read the second part of the first definition again?
The second part of the first definition is the offering of a capability for generating, acquiring, storing, transforming, processing, retrieving, utilizing, or making available information via telecommunications, and includes electronic publishing, but does not include any use of any such capability for the management, control, or operation of a telecommunications system.
So it does offer all of those.
No, and this is actually Devin Coldewey's point, is that internet service providers do not generate information. They do not acquire information. They don't store.
I mean the second part. The second part.
What? You're saying what?
Sorry, can you read the
The
You're
last
saying
sentence.
does not
not-
include or any use of such capability for the management, control, or operation of a telecommunications system.
right? It includes all of those. The ISPs do all of that.
Yes, an
They
ISP
manage
manages, controls. Yes. So
it. Yeah, exactly.
what they're trying to say is, well, you post on social media, so you're acquiring and generating content on the internet. So your internet service provider is an information service. And the fact is, no, you're not. You're creating your content on Facebook or
Yeah,
on
exactly.
Twitter. Those are information services. The idea that you are sending information to Facebook through a telecommunication system is what the internet service provider
Exactly.
is doing. And they make the argument, the FCC says, yeah, but you don't know. It says the transmission between or among points specified by the user. The user doesn't know where this information is going. I'm like, yes, it absolutely does, because you use a URL, a universal resource indicator or locator, to say, I would like to access that piece of information there. That is equivalent of a phone number. A phone number on a telecommunications service doesn't say, I need you to connect me to this node or this part of the telephone system, but it does say, I want to access this end user, and that defines it as a telecommunications system.
Without getting too political, this does sound like something that's become a habit of showing something that's black and saying, hey, look, this is white. Clearly, it is white. We say it is white, and it is white.
I think it's even less than that, though, because a lot of people will look at this and go, oh, yeah, no, I do all of these things on the internet. I create information. I request information. I guess the FCC is right, because I do all of these things on the internet.
Yeah,
and it is a
it's the
fundamental
misunderstanding of the
misunderstanding
meaning. Yeah, exactly.
that it's like, no, but you do them with other information service providers because of the internet. Because the telecommunication service that is the internet exists to connect you between those 2 points. Your ISP doesn't store your Facebook posts. It doesn't store the Google search results. It doesn't do any of that. It connects you to those things. And the fact that people don't understand that is what they're playing upon.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I actually don't even like the idea of using common carrier as the classification for the internet, because I think the internet is an entirely different thing. And I think we need to come up with new rules for that. And new rules
new
that
definitions.
are light regulation and promote competition. However, all that said, it certainly fits the telecommunications definition a lot closer than it does the information services definition. Just saying.
Well, all right. I think I shall retire.
From podcasting?
You're so French, retiring at such an early age.
But
I want to go out on top.
on top of your game. Okay, that's fair. No, I get it. Yeah, I'm about to close the stream anyway. So thank you, Patrick. I know it's late now that you're in that different time zone. So appreciate you staying up for us.
Almost midnight.
Oh no!
Imagine
That's
that.
crazy.
I'm old now. I have
I
to go
know.
to bed soon.
I couldn't do
and
it.
prepare
at my
shows
age.
for
I really
tomorrow.
couldn't. So thank
I
you.
have to. I have a kid that doesn't go to bed till 1.
My pleasure.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.